Hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this hour, the Situation Room at on this fourth day of September, and quite a number of, I was going to say June. I don't even know why my mind is stuck in June, but okay. We go forward with that. Our guest this hour is from a small country. I'm just going off of what you were saying.
Thank you.
However, with big impact, right? And as we look at some, we've had conversations with the Estonian nation before, right from the presidency and to other experts in education. Today, we speak with the Estonian ambassador to Kenya. And Daniel Eric Shire is the Estonian ambassador to Kenya, and he's our guest this hour. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you in the room, Balozi.
Thank you.
Welcome to Kenya's. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. You're in the hot seat of the Situation Room today, but we're looking at lessons that Kenya can actually learn from Estonia, and so we're very glad that you've joined us this morning. Even as we look at some of these things, we want to welcome you to the room and into this conversation in the true Situation Room style. What we do is that we take proverbs, well, not we, CT, takes proverbs from different African countries every week. And then when he gives us those proverbs, we ask you to listen to it, tell us what you think and how you would interpret it. Can we give you that assignment this morning?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Fantastic.
Okay. Hot water does not burn the house. That is a proverb from the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, formerly known as the Ivory Coast.
Very impressive. Hot water does not burn the house.
Yes.
That's you've really got a tough one for me, but I'm guessing that the hot water isn't prepared in the house. So I mean, there's no way of burning the house because the fire should be somewhere else, or in the modern day it's piped in. So I'm guessing that that it's maybe something linked to that. Where in different areas you do different things.
We actually want your interpretation. What you're doing is trying to figure out what I want you to say. Erase that one. Let's start again. What do you think this proverb means?
Well, for us, hot water is important, and for Estonia, it's the sauna. So the hot water came where we used to clean ourselves. It was the area where you would make the hot water yourself because it came from the heat of the sauna. And that's where we purified ourselves, where we warmed ourselves. So we definitely did not burn our house, the sauna, with the hot water.
See? There we go. There we go.
Because interpretation is always something new and refreshing, and we could never have thought of it.
True.
Yes. Thank you.
Fantastic place to start. So Balozi, good to have you here, like we said.
Thank you.
And even as we go into these conversations about key lessons that Kenya can learn and the, passage of information from one country to the next and lessons from one country to the other in this relationship.
Yes.
Start us off with, your journey into Kenya, how you since you've been here, what are some of the things that you on a personal level in your ambassadorship have been able to garner so far? A little bit of your journey.
Well, I've been to Kenya even before this period. I was here for the elections in 2007 as an observer for the EU. I was in Kericho in the beautiful tea area and experienced a very hot election period. And I guess that really gave me the understanding of also the country. Because we know that Kenya, on the business side, is really the leader in the region, and a lot of the capital, the big HQs of the companies are here, and really the M-Pesa story and all of these things. And then once in a while things heat up a little bit because I mean I think that's when things go too smoothly all the time, then it's a little bit of a reminder, a check. Let's see what's going on. So already at that time I was able to get that picture, and I think the dynamics of this country is in its people and the diversity, the different groups of people, and I think that's what I've really taken from my time here. Is also the fact that the media freedom component, that you're able to speak. I've been to now 37 countries on the continent, so I know the different situations in different countries, and I think that the opportunities here in Kenya is exactly why we are here. So I mean, it's not only the diplomatic relations, but it's also the business relations. Our companies are interested; they see the youth and the potential of in terms of startups. Last year we had we have a startup conference called Latitude 59 in Estonia that had about 3,000 participants this year, and last year we had the first one in Africa, and it was in Kenya. And it's for a reason, because we see the dynamism of the youth and the interest of doing some innovative things. And the next one will be coming up in November. So we're continuing the second version already. So I mean, it's been a success. So I think those are the things that we're really taking away. We're not just focusing on diplomatic. We're focusing on business.
Right.
We're looking at cultural relations. So it's the whole gambit.
Education is a big ticket item here as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Looking at the communication between, what can actually happen, how certain things can be learned. The Estonian example is a huge one in terms of, number one, digitalization and how that has been used throughout an education system to ensure that, you maximize on particular potentials. How have you seen that knowledge and information can be shared on this side of the pond?
Well, I think we're starting at the root level. So we're working on how to maybe innovate with the curriculum. So in Estonia, the curriculum is based that the teacher is given a guidelines as to the curriculum, and the teacher decides themselves how is the best way for the students to pick up the curriculum. Some teachers use very technological means and ways. Others use a hybrid, using different, and some are still the traditional way. So I mean, we are trying to help the ministry here give that opportunity to the teachers, because the students are like sponges. Whatever you give them, they normally absorb it.
Yeah.
So it's up to the teachers to be able to deliver it in a way that those sponges really take it all up and understand it. So we're trying to share our experiences in this area, working with Embu University in updating the curriculum that's being taught to teachers in university level, and I think that's one of the key areas. And in terms of technology, we have something that's called eSchool. And I think the main thing that can benefit, especially on the continent, is just the fact that you're indicating immediately to the parents whether the child is at school that day. So we did in Ghana, they did, one of the companies did a test, and the participation of students in class rose 25% because the parents were being informed immediately whether the child was at school that day or not having to wait till the end of the semester or the half year. But I mean, in addition to that, I mean, I get all of my children wherever I am. I know what they learned that day, what their homework is, whether they were in school, what their marks are. So I mean, it's a way of the school, the teachers, and the parents, and of course the student, because at the end of the day, the data belongs to the students. So
How does this technology work? I'm interested.
well, it's based on our entire e-governance system. So at birth, you're given a number, and everyone has that number, and that follows you through all of your life. I mean, even at the hospital, you can't put the name until you're given that number, and then you get home and you get an email saying, or a message saying, now you can give your child a number. A name. Here is their number. This is what it's linked to. Immediately, you'll get your, the benefits will be indicated to you that you get for this, and then of course that same number you use to go to school. So you'll get a message saying, now it's time to register your child. These are the schools that are in your area. Please select the top 2 or the top 3. I'm not sure. Each local government is different. And then that number follows you through the education. But of course, since the child is a minor, their number is always attached to the parent's number. So the parents will receive all that information until the student becomes a major, and then the student chooses themselves, or the child chooses whether they share with their parents or not. And that's just, it's an interoperability system. So we don't have a central lake of data. It's every database is kept in the ministry or in whichever the institution is, and we share it on a safe, secure line. And that's how they share the information.
At what age do you introduce your students to the digital world?
Already in kindergarten. So there's a very simple coding starting already in kindergarten. There's special games and things like that. In terms of using technology, it depends on the school. So my son's school didn't use any sort of internet or electronic means to present work. But my daughter now, going into fifth class or fifth grade, she was sending her works via the internet through the same e-school program. So I mean, it's really up to the school to decide which way they want to go. But the introduction is done early. But the thing is, people think that we have everything is e-school in Estonia. Actually, it's very limited, the e-component. You're being taught how to use it, but you're not living the whole day in your telephone, because that's the problem, is too much time being spent in the telephones.
I want to ask a question linked to technology still, just following up on what CT said. And you mentioned you were an election observer in 2007 right here in Kenya under EU. I happen to understand that in Estonia, you can vote from the comfort of your home, where you cast ballots electronically, and it's quite convenient for citizens to exercise their democratic right.
Yes.
We're just from an election in 2022, where, if I'm not wrong, I think if it's not majority, maybe most of the registered voters did not turn up to cast their ballots. Now, having been an observer under EU, seeing the electoral process in Kenya, what tidbits could we borrow from Estonia to ensure that, number one, the trust component in our elections is there for all to see, and equally embracing technology? Because at the end of the day, we've really tried to revolutionize how we vote, how we cast our ballots, but it's still pen and paper, So talk to us about that.
Well, I mean, the i-voting, we have i-voting because it's internet. E-voting is also, if you go to there's a machine, there's a computer, and you vote in the station with a computer. But that's also very difficult. I mean, it's very easy to manipulate when you have the computers on site. But what I've understood in Kenya is that your ID is a part of your identity. I mean, and there's been some questions that have been raised linked to that ID card, because I understand you have to have an ID card to vote.
Yes.
In Estonia, your identity is your number. Mine is 37805150074, and I use it for, again, as I mentioned, everything. And if I go voting, I can even tell them that number and just have a piece of legal photo identity. It doesn't have to be my ID. It can be my driver's license. It can be my some other card that I might have from somewhere. We don't have that many cards anymore, but I don't have to have that specific ID. So if it expires and I update it, it's not like nothing changes. It's that number that stays the same. So I mean, I think the simplicity of the process is that I don't even have to register as a voter, because it's already in the national registry. They already know it's already updated. Who the deaths are immediately updated, the births are immediately updated. So I mean, it's really the simpler your system, the more efficient it is, and at the end of the day, the e-voting is the biggest trust that the citizen can give to its government. So normally it's really the last step after you've done the other steps prior to it, of creating an e-government system where the government already has access to your data.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I own all my data, not the government, and that's the key. So there's a similar like a log where I can see who accesses my account. And there was a police officer who checked someone's information for another friend, and it was logged, and that police officer was fired for that. Because
for checking?
Yes, because you don't have the rights to access that information.
And it's followed?
It's very clear, black and white.
Okay, Balozi, help us out here. So sometimes you can only see the benefit of something when you understand it. And for you to see that if you go from one step to the next, and even in this sharing of knowledge, communication of how things have worked, and see how others can then adopt them, because development begets development, does it not? That when you see it working in one area, then you can actually say, then I can understand that it can actually work here, and I can see how I can adapt that thing to my situation and make it work. So just walk us through a little bit when we talk about digitalization of an entire economy, because essentially that's what Estonia has done. Everything is digitalized. I mean, I believe the numbers that the president gave us when she sat where you sit right now is 99.8%, something to that effect. So there's very little that was, and she said something about, well, in the next few years or in the next couple of months, that we would then be able to be looking at almost, 100%. How does that work? How does that look like? What are we talking about? You wake up in the morning and essentially everything you do then is in a system that is interdependent. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
It's pretty much 100%. The reason it's not 100% is for one reason. Is because when you get married and you get divorced, you're allowed to apply for it electronically. But they ask you, are you sure? And for this, you have to do it in live, because we don't want people one day married, one day divorced. So technically, we can make it, we can digitalize it, but we don't want marriage and divorce to be something like an everyday thing. We want it to still carry some value, and that's why we're at 99.8 or 99.9%.
Yeah.
But it's really, our challenge was a lack of resources and the need to deliver services to the people. At the end of the day, we made the mistake in the beginning that we used it to simplify the work of the government. But e-government is supposed to be citizen-centric, which means you're supposed to make the life of the citizen easier.
Not government.
Not government, because at the end of the day, government is delivering services, and through that, government's life is made easier. But you do the citizen approach. So we have the principle called, we have three components. One is the single electronic identity, that number that I mentioned, that's given to everyone. Second, and then, of course, how do you identify yourself, whether it's with your SIM card, whether it's with your ID card. There's also an app to identify yourself. Then there's the interoperability system, which I mentioned, that shares the data. And third is trust. So the trust, there has to be, the citizens have to use it. There has to be some sort of benefits, and they have to believe that, that the government is not going to use the data in a bad way. And once you have those in place, then it's other principles such as the once only principle. I only give my data once. And then that data is accessible by other ministries if I request them to look at it. So, for example, if I've given my address, when I go to the hospital and they take my number, they will see my address already and my phone number. And they will see it also linked to my children. So they don't need to ask me again to fill in that big form. What's your address? What are your children's names? What are their parents? No, it comes up already in the system. The same applies to the school. I mean, it's not that, it's not that you come out and everything's done for you electronically. It's the bureaucracy. It's if you want to create a company, we set the world record. I think it was 15 minutes to create a company. It's making it life easier for the citizens, making life easier for the companies, so they don't have to spend a day in the queue waiting to get that stamp. That's done directly. A lot of it is becoming now automated with AI. So I mean, it's really making the life easier for the citizen, which makes the life easier for the government as well. So we don't have to stand in the queue any longer. I mean, there are some restrictions because there's a registration system, and some people are not used to taking a time slot, so they still choose to go and stand in the queue. And so, that's an option for you. But when I go to pick up my passport, I go and I register and I say, I want this slot to come and pick up my passport. And I wait maximum 5 minutes and I'm given my passport. So I don't have to...
I'm sorry?
I wait maximum 5 minutes, and then I get my passport. So I don't need to stand in the queue, because I mean, time is money. I mean, you don't want your business people, you don't want your startups, you don't want your officials to be taking a day off work to go and do something that's very, should be simple.
Okay. Let's look at that particular system whereby you can, because again, we're looking at something that's the right of every citizen to have a document that allows you go somewhere else, and you're claiming nationality of one nation. What has been put in place to allow somebody go stand in a counter? You talked about the card that has all your information already, so you have the information,
yes,
and you're able to verify certain things by virtue of that
yes,
information. So essentially, if you have the booklets and you have the machine and you have the individual standing in front of you, there shouldn't be much more that you would need to do. And we're talking about not a document, not a slip of paper, that the actual passport is printed as you stand before the counter. If you have a payment to make, you make it, you get your passport, you go home. Is that what we're saying?
No, because you apply for it in advance, and then the passport is printed, and they don't invite you to come until they know that they have the passport, and that they can give it to you in 5 minutes, because you have to prove that it's you, and you give your signature and you leave. There's no other process needed when you get to the office, because you've already sent in all your information, and since it's in the database already, they can confirm in the database, and we have also e-signature. I forgot to mention that. And that is legal tender. So when I do my application online, it's a legal document. And even, for example, our government, you cannot, if you are a supplier to the government, you cannot issue a paper invoice. It has to be an electronic invoice. Otherwise, they will not accept it.
I'm seated here wondering if we've ever sent our leaders to benchmark in Estonia. Because
no, they have come. I mean,
they have come.
Yes, and don't get me wrong, you guys are doing very well. You have all kinds of systems. For example, your biggest hospitals all have CRM systems, and they are digitalizing what they're doing with the client data. But they just don't speak to each other because that system hasn't been put into place. And the data exists in many of the ministries, and one of the things that we're doing with the ICT ministry as we speak is we're piloting different interoperability systems to see how the data can be shared. So we're discussing at the moment which are the areas that they would like to try to see what the solution might be. So the government's very clearly working on this, and they're very understanding of it. The president's put the goal of the services and digitalizing everything. So I think you're going really in the right direction. But I think also one of the challenges is the citizens themselves. I went to a neighboring country and met with a foreign minister, and he said that we like to stand in queues because that's how we get the village news. So you cannot take the Estonian situation or the solution and just drop it into Kenya. It doesn't work that way.
No. So principles, but the principle of the applicability of the application of principle here is what we are saying can actually be the same.
Yes. The government is working on that. They're working on a single identity. They're looking into interoperability as we speak. So they're really looking at those steps.
All right. Let's take a break at this point. We're coming after that. It's 29 minutes to 10 o'clock. We're having a conversation this morning with Ambassador Shire, the Estonian ambassador to Kenya, and we're looking at lessons, that can be shared between two countries, Estonia and Kenya, that would actually point towards development. That conversation continues when we take this break, and we'll come back right after this.